Want to know why gas prices are so high? This is my piece from HartmannReport.com today. It's titled Exposed, the Trump, Putin, and Saudi Connection to High Gas Prices. You know, it's been a couple of years, and so most people have probably forgotten that in 2020, during the pandemic, in April of 2020, as the whole world shut down, as you could look up in the sky and there were no more jet trails, you know, vapor trails and things like that, everything went quiet, the highways were quiet. The demand for oil had collapsed so much that the price of oil was, you know, really, really low. First it got as low as $30 and $40 a barrel. And then the Saudis began punishing the Russians because the Russians wouldn't go along with production cuts to drive the price up. And so the Saudis opened their spigots. And the price of oil actually, it went down to $15 a barrel here in the United States. And this is what Reuters wrote at the time. This was April of 2020, quote, despite the agreement to cut a tenth of global production, oil prices continue to fall to historic lows. U.S. oil futures dropped below $0 last week as sellers paid buyers to avoid taking delivery of oil they had no place to store. Brent futures, the global oil benchmark, fell towards $15 a barrel, a level not seen since the 1999 oil price crash from as high as $70 at the start of the year. So here you have American petro-billionaires and American fossil fuel companies in a crisis. You have Putin in Russia in a crisis. 40% of his economy is based on his ability to sell oil, and the price of oil just went to $15 a barrel. And you have the Saudis who can ride this thing out, who are basically driving the train. The Saudis control enough oil that they basically control world oil prices. And they were putting Putin underground here, you know, with regard to oil prices. So what did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump took decisive action as president in April of 2020. He called up Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and made a threat that had never been made in the history of the United States against Saudi Arabia. We've had a partnership, a military and other partnership alliance with Saudi Arabia for 75 years now, in large part because we need their oil. And Trump threatened them. He said that we will pull back our military support of you guys. We will no longer support you militarily. As Reuters wrote in a April 30th, 2020 article titled, Trump told Saudi cut oil supplier lose U.S. military support. This is from the Reuters article at the time. Quote, Trump delivered the message to the Crown Prince 10 days before the announcement of production cuts. The kingdom's de facto leader was so taken aback by the threat that he ordered his aides out of the room so he could continue the discussion in private, according to a U.S. source who was briefed on the discussion by senior administration officials. Senator Kevin Cramer and Senator Dan Sullivan, two Republicans, get big funding from the oil industry, had drafted legislation to pull U.S. troops out of Saudi Arabia, and Trump was using that as a threat. Immediately, Saudi Arabia cut production. Immediately, the price of oil went back up. So now we get to today, where the price of oil is like, you know, $130 a barrel, and it's showing up at the pump all over the place. Joe Biden called up the Saudis and the Emiratis, the UAE, the two countries that could just very easily restore their production cuts, undo their production cuts, raise the production of oil, and lower prices all around the world, which would help the United States and would hurt Russia. So President Biden calls up Saudi Arabia and says, I'd like to talk to you about this, and they refuse to take his call. He calls the Emiratis and said, let's talk about this, and they refuse to take his call. They're still dancing to the tune of Donald Trump, the Saudis and the Emiratis. They're saying to the United States through secondary channels that, yeah, we'll talk to you about lowering the price of oil if you will tell us that bombing Yemen is just fine with you, and if you will give immunity to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for ordering the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post reporter. And of course, Biden's not going to do those things. And so now the Saudis and the Emiratis are basically, you know, holding the price of oil high. And this then helps them and helps the Russians this way. By holding the price of oil high, they are handing a giant lead pipe to the Republicans that they can use to bash Biden over the head with, you know, about gasoline prices here in the United States. That helps get elected Republicans in charge of the House and Senate this fall, Republicans who will do the bidding of the Saudis and of Putin, and helps set up a new Republican president in 2024 who will absolutely do the bidding of the Saudis and the Russians. This is the way that this thing is drifting. This is where it's all going. And nobody's talking about the role that Donald Trump's treachery played in all this, threatening the Saudis and then sucking up to the Saudis. So Saudi Arabia was the first country he went to, you'll recall. And then, but his son-in-law going over to that region and getting $1 billion. And I mean, it's just, it is all so mind-bogglingly corrupt. Somebody commented on my piece. This is published over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Exposed, the Trump, Putin, and Saudi connection to high gas prices. Somebody commented on there, why is it that these oil-rich countries always end up being so corrupt?